What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Morning Brew podcast, and welcome to the first episode of the Halloween bonus series. Before we get started, make sure you're following the podcast on Spotify and on Instagram so you don't miss any of the cool things that we have coming up. Today, I have for you an interview with pathologist assistant and host of the Mother Knows Death podcast, Nicole Angemi. She's here to teach us all a little bit more about what she does, which does include autopsies. I hope you enjoy. All right. Well, hello. Welcome again to the show. I'm super excited to talk to you, and thank you for being a part of my Halloween series. What is your name and where are you from?
I'm Nicole Angemi, and I'm from a suburb in South Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do? Because I think it's really interesting.
So I'm a pathologist assistant, and we are trained to do both surgical pathology. So if you have colon cancer, for example, and they take out your colon and your tumor, they would send it to the surgical pathology lab in the hospital. And I'm also trained in autopsy, so we will do an autopsy on someone who dies to determine the cause of death.
That's super interesting. And I feel that most people would be a little bit scared of the idea of doing an autopsy, but you bring a very unique perspective to the table and also a lot of knowledge and education. Why do you think it's important to break down the barriers and showcase these aspects of your profession?
I think oftentimes people are just scared, and a lot of times they're scared because they just don't know things. I think I first realized that when I was doing autopsy at the hospital, and a lot of times after reading the medical chart, it was very obvious to me why a person died, and the family member would just call us hysterically and just not understand how their family member died because no doctor just sat down with them and told them exactly what was going on. And a lot of times even autopsies aren't necessary if people would just the doctors especially would explain things to families, because I think sometimes obviously doctors are very intelligent and they just assume that people understand what's going on, and they don't really understand that the regular average person doesn't understand this stuff.
Right.
So I find that I don't consider myself to be a doctor level smart person, so I always had to learn things and break it down very basic just so I could understand and explain it to myself. And I find that the way that I learned in school is the way that I try to teach other people on a more basic level for everyone to understand.
That's really great. I do really appreciate that you break it down for people so that they can understand what happened to their loved ones, because as a person who's had someone quite rudely not explain something to me, I really appreciate that you do that. Out of my own personal curiosity, how did you get into doing this and learning about this? Have you always been interested in that?
No, I mean, I went to college. I first went to college in the late 90s, so I didn't have access to the outside world like you guys have today with social media and things like that. I only knew what was going on in my small circle of life, which which is a blessing and a curse, I guess you would say now. But yeah, I originally went to college because I just was kind of a lost teenager and didn't know what to do with my life, and I was like, oh, I'll just go to nursing school because that's what girls do, right? And then I started, and then that's how I came across biology. And from there, it was like, when you have teachers that teach biology and microbiology and stuff, they know someone who knows someone, and you start asking questions. And then I got introduced to this whole field of, I guess you would call it laboratory medicine, pathology. And that's how I found out about it. Just asking this person, making phone calls, finding programs near me that had these schools. And that's how I fell into it, kind of. But in hindsight, I look back at things when I was a child that I was interested in that now I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, for example, when I was in cooking class in like 7th grade, the teacher was like, okay, make a project that shows a danger in the kitchen or something. And
Mhm.
I drew a picture of a person that put their hand in the garbage disposal and like amputated their hand all over. And the teacher was like super disturbed by that. But I guess I've always had this like fascination with that kind of stuff. But, I never really realized that that was something you could do
Right.
for a living, I guess.
That's so funny. I mean, you weren't wrong. Like, that is definitely something that could happen that's dangerous. And because this is part of my Halloween series, I'm wondering if you'd be okay sharing some of the like quote unquote scariest things or like grossest things or most bizarre findings that you might have made in your experience.
Well, the beauty of working in pathology is that every day is pretty gross and disturbing on some kind of a level. And it's also very unpredictable, which is cool because every single day you just never know what you're going to stumble
Oh.
across. So I don't even know where to start, but I guess scariest things. I, I'm I'm not scared of dead bodies at all. I've been around them so much that I don't find them scary, but there are some situations that happen like so every time we're doing the external exam of the autopsy, so that's when the person's laying on the table and we're just looking
Mhm.
at the outside of their body before we cut them open. And we just look for things that may indicate to us why they died, the general health of the person, any kind of medical interventions, and just general changes that you see with death. And one of the things that we do is we open the eyelids and we measure the pupils, because
Oh, okay.
if the pupils are two different sizes, that could sometimes indicate if the person had a stroke or a tumor.
Mm.
So we just document all of that kind of stuff. And one of the times I opened the eyelids and the person had no eyeballs, and it like scared me for a second, just because that was something I wasn't
Right.
expecting to see. So what happens is sometimes after a person dies, the like scientists, especially from research labs, will come in and donate the eyes sometimes for research.
Oh.
And that's just like normally they tell us, and I guess I missed it. I blew over it and didn't realize that they came and harvested this guy's eyes. So when they take out the eyes, they put these like caps. They're almost
Mhm.
like a peach color contact lens that have these
Oh, okay.
pointy little
Mhm.
things on them, just so it doesn't collapse the eyelids where if the person's
Sure.
having a viewing or something. So, I open the eyelids and see these eye caps, and it just scared me for a second, because I was like, "Oh my God, like I wasn't expecting to see that."
I would also be very scared.
And another time we had a guy that had this big belly, and usually if a person has a really big belly, especially in the particular hospital I was working at, we had a lot of patients that had hepatitis C or just cirrhosis from being an alcoholic. So when we would get a patient that had a belly really big, you would assume that when you made the incision that a lot of fluid would come out of the
Mhm.
belly. Sometimes liters and liters of fluid are accumulating. So I made a little tiny pinch in the incision, and instead of fluid coming out, it was air, but it made like this crazy sound, and we both got scared. It was me and one of the pathology residents. It was just like, but we just
Oh,
were
yeah.
expecting flu. So anytime a noise like that comes out of a dead body,
Mhm.
you're like, what? Like it's like a little scary at first. And then as far as gross, I mean, God, that's just every day, really. We get a lot of foreign bodies in surgical pathology that people either swallow, sometimes just people with any kind of mental health disorders. They swallow things like crazy things. This one
Oh.
guy used to swallow shards of glass and rusty
Oh.
nails and things like that. So
Ouch.
yeah. And then we have, of course, the rectal foreign bodies, which is always interesting. Right. The very first time I got one, it was a travel toothbrush holder in a guy that was 75 years old.
Wow.
And at first, like, I'm naive in my early 20s, so I just don't really understand like why this old guy would stick something up his butt, and then one of the doctors had to explain to me how the prostate gland is like an organ, a very like the G spot in a female, and that's a common thing that guys do, which I just was totally clueless. I thought he was just losing his mind kinda, and I quickly learned that that was very common because I got so many things over the years of always from a man stuck in his rectum and just various items, vegetables, fruits,
Vegetables.
the classic dildo, of course, but a lot of just, like, weird things, shampoo containers, hairspray containers, deodorant, everything.
Vegetables. That's
Yes.
I'm like not surprised. Do you ever get the like I fell on it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we get just a white container with a lid on it from the emergency room, and we don't usually get a story with it because we
Oh,
don't see
okay.
the patients, so but we hear that all the time from people who work in the emergency room that there's lots of different excuses, and, sometimes I just talked about a case recently of a guy that had a toothbrush, that an actual toothbrush up there, who was saying he was using it because he was constipated and trying to help. And while that's possible, that just seems a little bit more unlikely than, like, the actual reason they were using it.
Yeah, no, that's super valid. And a lot of people always say that you can like smell death. Is that a true statement?
Oh, yeah. It's a very certain smell, even doing an autopsy on someone who just died. I don't really like to do autopsies on people that just died because their bodies are still warm, and it kinda just freaks me out.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, but I've done it, I've had to do it, and I mean, you could smell it right away, and while I've never witnessed a surgery, so I don't know. Let's say, for example, they were taking out someone's pancreas or something and had a huge incision in the person's abdomen. I don't know what that smell is compared to a dead body, but
Mhm.
I've one of our residents that we used to work with in pathology was a former surgery resident, and he told me it does not smell like the same as it does during a surgery. It's a very specific
Mm,
smell that comes
okay.
with death, yeah.
That's interesting. And I know you said you're not really scared of being in the same room as dead bodies anymore, but do you ever have to get into like a specific state of mind before working with someone who is deceased?
No, I don't think I've ever I just never have. I think the very first time I saw an autopsy was I mean, prior to doing an autopsy, I only saw maybe 2, maybe even 1 dead person in my entire life, at and it was my uncle at a funeral, and he was embalmed and had makeup on laying in a casket
Mhm.
with a suit on. It's just a little bit of a different thing. So, the very first time I saw an autopsy, that was a little bit, just not even the autopsy itself, just seeing a dead person laying there on the table and a lot of people in the room just act like not acknowledging the fact that there was just a dead person laying there was just kind
Yeah,
of weird to me. But after that, it just never really bothered me. I don't really have to get into a state of mind because I just don't find it to be scary at all, and I don't it's just a part of life, so I just don't feel any kinda way about it.
that makes sense. What is your favorite part of your job?
I think, like what I was saying earlier, is just the variation. There's never a point where you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm bored and I'm going," like,
Mhm.
"I've seen everything now, there's nothing more to learn or there's nothing more to see." I love learning. I still learn every single day, no matter if it's just something small. I'll just be like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I look things up all the time, and also science is ever evolving, so certain things that might have been true, because now it's to the point where I've been, at least in college and working in pathology for tw 25 years, you know? So things now are different than they
Mhm.
were when I went to school. Some things I learned in school were very advanced, and some of the things are, like, just coming out now. For example, I hear a lot of talk now about how biopsies could sometimes be causing like cancer to spread in patients. It's a thing that some people are talking about, and some people also think that it's not true.
Mhm.
But I remember in school, like, I learned about that in school 25 years ago, that some of my teachers were telling us that. So I think it's kinda cool that you're hearing about it now, because 'cause I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I learned about that years ago. Why is that all of a sudden a
Yeah.
thing? So that like, stuff like that is kind of interesting.
That's super interesting. And you have your own podcast, Mother Knows Death, that features yourself and your daughter. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my daughter Maria is part of my journey. The only reason that I even went to college is because I had her when I was 15. So when I had a 4-year-old or 5-year-old kid, and um just had to do something with my life,
Mhm.
because back in the 90s, it was like I was on my parents' health insurance, and I guess because I was a minor, my daughter was able to be on it too, but once I turned 18, they were gonna kick us both off of the
Oh, okay.
insurance. Um, and there was I don't know about any such thing that I was able to get insurance. So that was, like, the main motivating factor to go to school, was, like, you gotta get a career to take care of her, because I guess back then it was like $1,000 a month or something, which I was delivering pizza and, like, doing nails and stuff. I just wasn't able to afford that. So she's been part of my journey this whole time. Obviously, I went to school the entire time she was a little kid. At first, she'd have to go to college with me a lot. Like, in the summers, I didn't have someone to watch her. She would come to school with me, sit in the back of the classroom. Sometimes I would leave. We moved in the city for a couple years when I went to college, and I would, like, leave school and go pick her up from school, bring her back, have her in the back doing homework, but she was always kinda there, like, learning at the
Mhm.
same time. And then as she got older, still didn't have anybody to watch her in the summer. She was, 12, 13 years old, like, not really old enough to stay home by herself, so I would bring her into work, and she interned at the hospital in the morgue. Um, she definitely didn't follow in my footsteps as far as that goes, because she hates the idea of blood and knives
Yeah.
and gore, anything. But she's always been interested, especially in true crime and when celebrities die and things like that, so always asking me questions about, just, like, who died this summer, Hulk Hogan and
Mhm.
Malcolm, Jamal, and, like, Ozzy Osbourne, and all you do is you read what is on TMZ or something, and everyone wants to know more details. So we've always talked about, like, the pop culture aspect of pathology, and just, like, conversations in our house. And then we thought, like, that might be a good idea, that people wanna know about that. So every week on the podcast, we go through all different stories that are current events that are happening in the news. So we cover some true crime, like, for example, we obviously been covering, like, the Brian Koberger, Idaho,
Oh,
4 murders.
yes.
That's,
Mhm.
like, one of the cases that we're really covering, and, the Emmanuel Haro, that the for those of you who don't know, the little boy that's 7 months old, who his parents said was kidnapped last week, and now the parents just got arrested yesterday. So we, like, follow certain cases that are interesting, but we also talk about other cases that have nothing to do with true crime that are happening in the news. So, I haven't even gone through our list of what we're recording, but, for this week. But last week, for example, we were talking about a robot that they are making that could carry a baby full-term pregnancy
Oh, wow.
without any involvement with a mother. Like, it's just, like,
That's
outrageous
nuts.
scientific. Yeah, it's really crazy, and we just talk about anything that has to do with life, death, biology, just human interest. So yeah, we do that podcast every week, and we cover, like, 15 to 20 news stories every week, and I'm telling you, every week we cut another 10 plus stories. There's just so much stuff to cover all the time.
That's super interesting. And lastly, is there anything else that you'd like to promote? Where can people find you?
So I guess my main account is at Mrs. Angemi. So it's at Mrs. MRS_ANGEMI on Instagram. And that's where I post a majority of my pathology stuff. Um, and I have a website called thegrossroom.com, which is where I do the majority of articles that we write every week. So we write anywhere from um like 5 to 7 articles every week. We do either a celebrity death dissection, so we go through a celebrity's death, or we do high profile cases. So today I'm writing about SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, because a lot of
Yeah.
people are interested in that. And then we cover actual cases to just specific people. And then our Mother Knows Death podcast, of course, which can be found on any podcast platform. I have a book called Nicole Angemi's Anatomy, which could be found at any bookstore too. And I would say, like, next week I'm going to CrimeCon,
Ooh.
and I'm doing a lecture on celebrity deaths, so that'll be super cool. And then we have another event in October at a New Jersey, like an oddities punk rock flea market kind of,
That's
which
so cool.
yeah, which we're looking forward to. We're gonna do a live podcast there, as well as, signing books and things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're like we're excited. We like doing the live podcast. We're really looking forward to CrimeCon. We went last year too and we loved it. It's just like especially for people attending that are really into the whole true crime world, you just get to meet all the people that you listen to their podcast, and just then there's people there like Matt Murphy and Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator. I don't know if you remember that show. That
Yeah.
was, yeah, like you just get to meet all these people like Nancy Grace, and so it's cool. And you actually, it's not like you sit on stage and see them from afar. Like you can sometimes at the meet and greet, you could just like have a drink with them, or like see them in
No
the
way,
hallway
that's
or
so
something.
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, that's super awesome. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but thank you so much for sharing the insights into your profession. This is all very interesting.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
That's all for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you follow Nicole Angemi on socials and check out her podcast, Mother Knows Death. It's super, super interesting and really fun to listen to. I hope you're enjoying the Halloween bonus series. There's more to come. And make sure that you're following the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Instagram so that you don't miss any of our fun uploads. If you haven't heard, we're also on YouTube now so that you could watch a select few episodes with visuals. Make sure to tune in next week because I'm dropping hopefully one of the coolest episodes ever, and I really don't want you guys to miss it.